So as an entrepreneur, I tell people this all the time. You have one core directive: solve problems. Because when you do that, that's you being in business. Problems create opportunities. They create more opportunities for you to be in business. Forgive that typo, I see it. So, we hear the phrase more money, more problems. But entrepreneurs, we have to actually understand more problems, more money. So let's get to that part of it, right? After we're over the despair and everything, let's get to the successes. Believe it or not, more people became millionaires during the Great Depression than any other time in American history at that point. And I just did a post yesterday and showed that in the pandemic, every 30 hours, a billionaire was created. We created more millionaires and more billionaires in the pandemic that has ever been created in history. And also, every 33 hours, a million people go into abject poverty. So that's a huge polarization. But more people became millionaires. That was the fact then. So not everyone suffered, because there were opportunities that just were not present. People stepped up and they addressed the issues. There were a lot of key factors that helped that along. So startup costs were lower during the recession because everything kind of bottomed out. Savvy entrepreneurs had edged a position for themselves. Poorly run businesses were able to be bought really easy. Their equipment, their assets, their real estate, right? Rents were cheap, wages were low. So it was a ripe opportunity for those who were able to take it. And so now we're going to look at some of the successful companies, their solutions and their strategies. And right here, you see Charles Darrow, who created Monopoly. And you also see Michael Cullen, who created the King Cullen grocery store chains. And I wanted to highlight both of them because most of the time, if you think the depression and you think what are things that people would need, most people would not think that Monopoly would thrive, like a board game. That's the last thing that people need when they have no money, right? But I wanted you guys to get an idea of how different items were satisfying needs at that time. So King Cullen Grocery, the company that claims that Michael Cullen invented what we call today the supermarket format when he turned the Queen's Warehouse into a grocery store. So prior to that, you just had like smaller mom and pop type of grocery things, and he opened up that big, massive space. So of course he was able to scale prices low. So think about like your Costco's and things like that. That was sort of the system that he created. Harp's Food Store. So they opened up a food chain and their messaging was price cutter. That's what they had everywhere. So you can imagine that wasn't the language at that time. So that attracted a lot of people who were going through tough times. Ocean Spray Cranberry. So there were a few companies that got together, 3 companies, and instead of them just fighting with each other, they actually pulled their resources together and they found success through cooperation. Monopoly, like we just highlighted. So while financial times were difficult, people were still looking for ways to have fun. Like at the end of the day, even during slavery, which is one of the hardest, if not the hardest time of any human experience here in America, especially, slaves still found time to dance, to celebrate, to love, to fall in love, to have children. So even in despair, people are still looking for escapism and relief. So those are things that can still be provided for them. The Yellow Book. So the Yellow Book gave struggling businesses and consumers an efficient opportunity to comparison shop, right? So there was no Yellow Book back then. There was not a directory that listed all of the businesses in a way that you could just like find that easy. Of course, basically like our version of Google, okay, or Yelp or something like that. So Yellow Book satisfied a need. Whipley, there was a business that didn't focus on the consumer, but instead they helped the businesses to stay in business. So they provided services such as tax preparation, business planning, and corporate finance. So I wanted to give you guys like a diverse kind of set of businesses and the different methods that they use to thrive during the Great Depression, and some popular foods that were invented. Spam, meat in a can. So the pork industry, they used to have all of these, unsavory pieces of meat. And as they were cutting back, it was kind of like, look, instead of us just throwing this stuff away, what can we do with it? So they started to repurpose those things and they put them in the cans of Spam. So it was super cheap and it was a way for people to get protein. Kraft macaroni and cheese. Believe it or not, back then, all macaroni and cheese was made from scratch. So that was ease. Toll House chocolate chip cookies, like just having that small little portable treat with you, a nice little sugar rush. Ice cream bars that were convenient, Bisquick, Krispy Kreme donuts, Ritz crackers, all these little snack things, and Kool-Aid, things that were really, really cheap. So the whole entire landscape of even how people ate changed. Now, you could be looking at that list and thinking like, oh my God, does that mean that I have to come up with some new convenient product or service? No, you don't have to invent something. If you have a business already, it's really just about reworking it, remessaging it, or repositioning it, because you're already providing a solution surely by the fact that you have a product. It's just how you now communicate that, right? So let's get into some of examples. So reworking, multi-use. This is a great example of how you can add value to a product. As people are cutting back, one of the things that you really want to tap into is, how can I show this customer that they're getting multiple uses and multiple functions out of my product? So here's a dress that when a woman, and this is presented now, she can look at this and say, you know what, let me buy this little garment or let me buy this little cardigan because I'm going to get all these different looks and all of these different functions out of this. So instead of her thinking I'm just buying a dress, in her mind, she's buying, what is this, 8 to 10 different outfits just about, right? So that's a good way to position it. Now, if you don't have something that's as multifunctional as this, you can introduce multifunction into it. So let's suppose that there was just this blue dress and it didn't do all of these wonderful things. You could show that dress in a work setting, a cocktail setting. You could dress it up for formal wear. You could showcase it as something that you could wear to a conference or a presentation simply by having the model put on different accessories with it and different looks. So now that person sees, oh, this one dress will carry through to 4 different type of environments. So it still feels like she's getting 4 dresses in one. You could showcase the dress into different seasons. So you could show her how, okay, right now you can have this dress here, don't put anything on it. And that's great for fall. And that's great for spring. She could maybe pull it up, tie it to the side, and you can show that it's great for summer. She can put another layer on it and show that it's great for winter. But either way it goes, you're adding that transformation, which is giving that multi-use. So that's a great way to kind of reimagine your own products, okay?